what's up? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going apartment hunting in New York City. I'm looking for an apartment again. I feel like I make one of these every few years, but that's just the reality of living in New York City, is that especially if you're a renter, you might move apartments every 2 years. Unfortunately, this is one of the hardest times to apartment hunt in New York City because rent prices are at an all-time high. And I did say that in my last video, but it's just the reality. The rent prices keep increasing. These are the requirements for my apartment search. I would like a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Would love a 3-bedroom if it's possible. My budget is $68,000, which sounds really high if you're not someone from New York City, but this is not really luxury price range in Manhattan. But in Jersey City, in downtown Brooklyn, which is my target location, it is possible to find apartments for that price in that area. I would love an apartment with good amenities because I work from home. I want to have an apartment that has good co-working spaces and gyms. A nice to have is to be in Brooklyn, but I'm also open to other locations. A must have for us might sound petty, but is having nice views. Another must have is having washer dryer in unit and having a dishwasher in unit and having ample storage space. That's another must have for us. So let's get into the apartments. Okay, so the first apartment we saw during our search was 17 Hanover Place. This was actually a new building that was just recently opened. When I went into the apartment unit, I was astounded. Like literally the amount of sunlight again that was let into this apartment building was insane. These are the jaw-dropping views I would love to see every single morning in my living room. Like I love this apartment so much. The kitchen was also really nice. I love the minimal design of the kitchen, even though I was not a big fan of the induction stovetop, but you could tell that there was a lot of storage in this kitchen. Then we moved on to the bedrooms, and both bedrooms were very spacious. In the primary bedroom, you could actually fit a king mattress, which I really was shocked to see, and that's very rare in New York City. The closets were also huge, and then the bathrooms were also very spacious. And not only did we see this model for the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, but we also saw a second model for the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and we actually liked the second model even more. As you can see, the living room layout is different, and even though you don't get those corner views that you got in the other apartment because it's kind of obstructed by a pole, I feel like this layout is even better. The one thing I didn't like about this apartment though, outside of the induction stovetop, was also the bathroom tile, but I'm telling you, that's such a minor inconvenience because of what you actually get in this apartment. There was also a lot of storage in this apartment as well. Now let's move on to the amenity space. The amenities for this apartment were actually partially under construction, and they were willing to reduce the standard price of $100 to $0 per month. The rooftop was completely under construction. The gym was not, which I love to see. There were multiple squat racks and cardio machine. This building also had great study spaces, which is good for someone who works from home. Because part of the apartment is not completely finished, I was a little bit afraid that we would be dealing with construction noises, but the leasing agent told me that that would be something that we wouldn't have to worry about. So yeah, our search would have probably ended here. But when we reached out a few days later to make an offer, they decided that because they've gotten so much interest, they actually increased the cost of the apartment to $1,000 more, which would push this apartment to be over what we can afford. And then I stumbled across these two apartments, which let me just show you. So the first apartment we saw was an apartment that was still under construction. No one was living in this apartment, but they were gonna start moving within the next 1 to 2 weeks. We started this tour in the amenity space, which was 2 huge floors of amenities in the bottom of the building. I couldn't get too much footage because the leasing agent was insistent that I didn't film in the amenity space because it was still partially under construction. And there was definitely a good reason, because less than 5 minutes into the showing, in the amenity space, we saw 2 rats. Yes, 2 cat-sized rats. The type of rats that run New York City, running up and down in the amenity space like they were paying tenants. Not even paying tenants, like they were the owners of this building. I have never seen 2 rats in any viewings of any apartments I've toured, and I've toured some very suspicious apartment buildings. The funny thing is that the leasing agent had the audacity to say that rats are in all these new construction buildings. Obviously, I don't believe. So I almost walked out after seeing that, but because I was kind of desperate, we decided to still see the actual units. And the units were nice. That's the worst part. We saw like multiple versions of the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom layout. This was the best one, and it was staged. As you can see, both bedrooms were very spacious, and so were the bathrooms, and I really loved the finishes in the bathroom. My favorite part was definitely the living room, which had amazing floor-to-ceiling windows and a beautiful view. Even as I was viewing each unit, I could not stop imagining how leisurely those rats were running around the amenities amenities floor. They won this round, they can keep the building, and we will continue looking somewhere else. At this point, we started to feel like maybe the problem was our budget, and then we started to fall into lifestyle inflation, and we were like, oh my gosh, let's see if we should go a little bit more expensive in our search. And unfortunately, at the same time, Street Easy was showing us apartments that were a little bit out of budget for us. But we said, you know what, whatever, let's see, maybe we'll be able to negotiate these apartments down. So one of the first ones we saw was jaw-droppingly beautiful. This apartment was in Dumbo. It was a new build luxury apartment. This unit was stunning. When you walk in, you're actually greeted by this spacious living room, and the staging was so good. It really sold the place. You could see the vision of what it would be like to live here. You get great views of Brooklyn in the apartment, but one of the special features of this apartment is when you actually step out into the terrace. And this terrace view is like $1 million view because you can see both bridges and you can see Manhattan. The problem is I'm not a terrace person. I don't value terraces because I like to be inside unless I'm going out to see a friend. Like, I like to be inside, so I knew I was not going to use this terrace, and this terrace is what really makes the price of this apartment so high. We continue to see the rest of the space. This is when the leasing agent dropped a bomb on us and told us that even though this was a penthouse unit, it does not come with washer dryer, and if you want them to install a washer dryer, you'd have to pay $100 per month. Isn't that ridiculous for supposedly a luxury building in the penthouse unit? Then now you have to sign up for a $100 subscription fee for your washing machine. This is a ridiculous that you can only find in New York City. But yeah, going through the rest of the apartment, the bedrooms were very nice, huge, they were very spacious. The bathroom was also spacious and had great finishes. Outside of the terrace, I have to say one of my favorite features in this unit was actually the massive walk-in closet in the primary bedroom. Now we move on to the amenity space. You get access to a nice gym, a theater, dog washing, co-working areas. What was interesting is in the amenity floor, you really notice how close this building is to the trains because you can hear the trains rumbling on the amenities floor. We were able to negotiate this price to be only $2,000 more than our budget. We were so desperate that we were really considering this, but we had to really think harder about it because I love to budget. I know what fits in my budget and what I can afford. Moving into this apartment would require us to make certain lifestyle sacrifices and really impede some long-term goals. So we had to be really honest with ourselves. Even though we really wanted this apartment, we just knew that we don't want to make these lifestyle sacrifices. We want to reach these goals more. We were just gonna have to move on and not go for this apartment. Now things start to get a little bit more juicy in this apartment search because we go back to our original budget. I started to obsessively check Street Easy multiple times a day because I was finding my dream apartment. Nothing was keeping me from my dream apartment. So the next apartment we saw was actually one of my favorite apartments of this entire search. This was an apartment located in our target area of New York City. When I stepped in, I saw the lobby. I already knew this was going to be a really nice apartment tour. The lobby was very modern, very clean, and we started off by seeing a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom layout in this building. The layout was amazing. Like, even as you enter, you see how much light that the apartment lets in. I love the industrial vibes of the space with the concrete walls and the concrete ceiling. Even though this apartment is located on a very, very busy road, the unit was extremely quiet. You could not hear your neighbors. You could not hear the street outside, which is another huge pro because as a remote employee, I'm spending almost most of my days at home. And when I want to take work meetings and when I just want to get work done quietly, I needed it to be quiet. The bedrooms were not super big, but I did think the bathroom was very nice. I loved the beige and the white in the bathroom, and there was a lot of storage in the bathroom. This apartment also had a washer dryer, which I know in other cities this is nothing special, but in New York it's something very nice to see, as well as spacious closets. So all in all, we loved this apartment, but the fact that it only had 1 bathroom was something that was a huge deterrent. When we found the apartment online, there was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom available. By the time we got there, the leasing agent let us know that it was no longer available, that the only layout they had available was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, which was a little disappointing. This apartment was beautiful, but I actually think where this building really shines is in the amenities. Guys, look at this rooftop pool. When I saw this rooftop pool, my jaw dropped. This is the type of pool that you see in a luxury hotel, not a random apartment building in Brooklyn. I was literally speechless looking at this pool. Because it's like technically an indoor pool, it's only available in certain seasons. Then we made our way to see another amenity in this building, which was a gym. This felt like you were in an Equinox. Like, this gym had everything from weightlifting and cardio equipment, but there were also really cool, quirky amenities that I really liked in this apartment building. One of the ones I liked was this grow room, which was so peaceful. It has all these beautiful plants all around, and it's just a space where residents can come with no phones and just enjoy and just sit down and relax. Another thing I really loved about this apartment building is that it had a ton of co-working spaces, like from private to public booths, and the amenities were also in great condition. Like, I knew I would use these amenities every single day. I love this apartment, but unfortunately there was no way it was going to work because it was missing the one bathroom. So our search continued to our next apartment, which again is in a really great location of Brooklyn and a little bit outside of our target location, but still a very central location with multiple subway stops. But with this building, we saw a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. What was really cool about this space was that they also had a den. And again, the views were amazing. Not as good as the last apartment, but I did like the views. The design of the apartment was also very clean, but you know, I'm kind of, sometimes I do notice the details. I felt like the finishes were kind of cheap in this building, more than the typical rental apartment building. And then we went to go visit the amenity space, and this is when I started to feel very differently about this apartment building. Just taking the elevator to the amenity space, I realized that this apartment felt like you were living in a corporate office. It just felt like it was not going to be the right apartment for me, so we decided to leave, even though this had the biggest space of all the apartments we saw. So the next apartment I saw was a rent stabilized apartment in the heart of Dumbo. This apartment is a steal at this price for this location. When you enter the unit, there's an entryway, closet, a bathroom, and everything looked great until we noticed that we were catfished. This is what the views look like on Street Easy, and these were the actual views of the apartment. The leasing agent had basically pulled a bait and switch by using Photoshop photos from a unit that was many floors higher. I mean, this was still a great apartment, but I can't lie, I was extremely disappointed that the agent wasn't upfront in showing the accurate pictures of the apartment. Again, this apartment had a very spacious layout. I know I've been saying that word for every single apartment, but the rooms were huge. The primary bedroom had so much space, even though this was a queen bed, and I would have seen the primary bathroom, but the existing tenant did not flush. You could tell that this apartment was built really high quality, and it was definitely built in the early 2010s, even maybe like the early 2000s, because they just don't build like this anymore. And we also saw a few amenities, but we kind of lost interest immediately because of how misled we felt. At this point of the search, when we were viewing this apartment, I was very much over it, like from the bait and switch apartments to seeing the 2 rats to the random increase in price. But I've actually had my eye on this building for a really long time. This is One Boerum Place. It's a really nice luxury apartment building in our target location. The area is very busy. It's a high traffic location, which I'm not really a fan of, but it's also close to a lot of subways. Below the apartment building are food stores, coffee shops, and a hair salon, which is really something I'm not that into either. But when you actually walk in through the lobby, which is great, into the actual apartment was very spacious. The kitchen was beautiful. There were great materials in the kitchen, and the window let in a lot of light. There was a washer and dryer in this unit. Even though the views were not impressive, everything was really spacious, from the bathrooms to the bedroom. Each room had a walk-in closet, which is really rare in New York City. The amenities are where this building shines too. And the cool thing about these amenities is that they're actually free and they're included in the price instead of a separate $100 per person fee. There was this huge indoor pool that you get access to year-round. There was this really nice gym, a lounge space, and finally a beautiful rooftop that showed so much of Brooklyn. This was definitely one of the best apartments that we saw. Even though it was in the higher range, we decided to reach out to actually turn in our application, only to find out that the leasing agent had already accepted someone to take this apartment. That was our fault because we did take some time before we got back because we were still kind of not sure if this was the right place for us. But we eventually did find the right apartment, which I'm moving into literally today, which is great news for us. So it was a very frustrating apartment search, but I'm so lucky that we eventually ended up finding our dream New York City apartment. But I did want to end this video off by sharing some tips that really helped me during my apartment search that I feel like it's really helpful if you're someone who's new to apartment hunting in New York City. Like, I've done it for 10 years. I have a lot of experience apartment hunting. Number 1 tip, you need to have a list of your requirements and your must-haves, nice-to-haves, because in New York City, unless you are multi-millionaire, you're gonna have to compromise on something. You're either gonna have to compromise on the location, you're gonna have to compromise on the size of the apartment. So it's really important to know, what are you not willing to compromise on? For us, we were not willing to compromise on the fact that we wanted a 2 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Might be petty, but we were not willing to compromise on the fact that we wanted a nice view. We were more flexible about where our apartment was going to be. That flexibility allowed us to actually find our dream New York City apartment. Another thing that's really important is to set a budget. We were tempted to really go above our budget. And when we actually put that information into our budgeting spreadsheet, we realized that it's going to require us to make lifestyle sacrifices that we were not willing to make. And it's not only important to set a budget that you can actually stick with, you also need to factor in your 1 to 2 month security deposit, which we did factor in. You have to factor in amenities fees, which we learned during our search can be an additional $200 per month for us. You have to factor in broker's fee. You also have to factor in additional costs. Like, the costs really can add up. So you have to factor all these different costs when you're setting your budget that works for you. Another thing too is I would really recommend that you research your neighborhoods. Because I'm familiar with that area in Brooklyn, that's one of the reasons I wanted to live there, because I've basically lived right by that neighborhood in previous years and I'm used to that neighborhood. Take the time to really research the neighborhood you're interested in. Make sure you visit that neighborhood in the night just to get a sense of the vibe, because it's so different from the morning. Another thing I would really recommend is this is actually a good time to look, which is like in the beginning of the year or end of the year. But when it comes to the spring to fall period of the year, that's when it's extremely competitive and you will not be able to get deals, but there is a higher inventory. So if it's possible to push your search to more of the winter, that's the best time to do an apartment search. And also have your documents ready. Like you saw, there are some apartments we lost because we didn't move quickly. It's important to have your ID, 3 recent pay stubs, your tax return, a letter of employment, bank statement, all these things ready to go, because sometimes when you're apartment hunting, you're gonna have to deliver this information literally the same day sometimes. So make sure you have that information. But yeah, that is my very chaotic apartment search. If you're on your apartment search, I wish you best of luck. It's crazy out here in New York City, and I'll see you guys in the next video.